Hey there, this is Della Rucker, principal of the Wise Economy Workshop and author of this book, The Local Economy Revolution Has Arrived, What's Changed, and How You Can Help. It is most definitely a Monday, so sorry for getting started, ran a little bit behind getting ready, and it's going to be a rather busy week around here. So I'm glad I have a chance to sit down and share a section of this book that I think is very valuable. And it's valuable, I think, regardless of what your role is in your community, whether you have an official role or you're just somebody who's trying to figure out how to help the place you care about do better. This is also, as I think I've mentioned before, this book is a revision and expansion of a book that I did in about 2013, which is called The Local Economy Revolution, What's Changed and How You Can Help. When I went back through to try to update this book, as I've said in other places, I went away from writing and speaking and in a lot of the work that I was accustomed to for about 4 or 5 years because I wasn't satisfied that I really had useful answers to offer. As I've said before, I think I got really good at pointing out what I felt like we were all doing wrong, but not necessarily having an answer to what to do right, what to do to make things better. And one of the chapters, when I came back to do this revision and to talk about some of the things that I had learned over the intervening years about how we can actually play a much more effective role in helping our communities thrive and be resilient and be the kind of places where we want to be. This was a section that I ended up having to rework a lot. So when I wrote it in 2013, the section on talent, it was really focused on kind of the conventional economic development definition of talent. And I'll talk about that in this version. But one of the most important things that I learned over the time between the first version of this book and this version was that talent in this coming era is something very, very different and much more available than we may have thought it was. But we block ourselves and we block our communities off from benefiting from an enormous amount of our talent because we've got the wrong model in our heads. We've got the wrong picture of what that talent looks like. So here's today's selection. The section is called Talent, Not What We Thought It Was, Much More. This section has changed the most since 2013. In the first edition of this book, I highlighted the growing importance of talent, high-skilled employees in high-demand fields as an economic development tool. In 2013, I wrote a lot about being authentic and presenting your community to potential talent the way you actually are, and I added some uncomfortable stuff about what that talent wants and whether it wants what we have to offer in our individual community. And most uncomfortably, I tried, and I failed, to explore what we do about the people in our community who aren't talent, with a capital T. As I wrote in the selection, quote, "We have animals more equal than others," unquote. Some talent is more equal than others, period. Which is, if you accept democratic principles, very unsettling. I could see the conflict, but I didn't have an answer to that problem because I had gotten stuck in the standard paradigm as well. The mistake that I made in 2013 and that others across the country have made since then is this: that talent is super pricky, capricious, and rare, screamingly rare, just under unicorn level rare. And because those near unicorns are so rare, we have to do whatever we can to give them what they want, to brush ourselves up to their levels, to fit ourselves to them like a fine suit. Sure, we shouldn't try to sell our community as an XXL if we're actually a medium. But the basic point was the same. Sell our community to the people most likely to buy it. Talent wasn't really comparable to the coal and steel that provided the raw materials for the industrial era, which was the surface analogy that people like me kept using. This talent, the way it had been described, was more like a precious metal, super hard to access and maintain, and requiring this constant, anxious investment in keeping it from being poached away by someone offering a little bit more. But talent isn't rare. Perfect, ready to made, use right out of the box talent is somewhat rare. But even today, our communities are chock full of talent. Our talent doesn't always look or sound or act like that 2013 Della thought it should. Well, sometimes it needs some polish, some investment. And that's investment that we have stupidly been resistant to making. But the bigger problem is this: our organization systems, whether you're in business or in government or nonprofit, still look under their fancy covers more like a 1900s whip factory than anything that fits a fusion era. And in many respects, this talent, this untapped talent, looks more fusion era than our organizations understand or assume. So our talent and our systems, once again, are living in different, conflicting paradigms. So it's not surprising that the near unicorns are hard to hold, and the talent in the making regards our invitations with suspicion. Our biggest talent pools, after all, are the people who've been burned by us before. I made a point in an earlier chapter, and in about everything I've written over the last 5 years, about how diverse teams working within an empowering structure create more innovative work than conventional approaches. That was the foundation for one of the businesses I co-founded post-2013, and it achieved some impressively innovative results. But when you try to put diverse groups of people into the same old systems that you used for the plain vanilla homogeneous groups, 3 things go wrong. First, the talent that doesn't fit the old molds will get kicked out of the conventional system unless there is a conscious effort made to adapt the old system to fit these new opportunities. It is way easier for the gatekeepers of the way we do things to reject this new talent because it doesn't look right or sound right or have the right degree than it is to challenge their paradigm to make room for new talent. Because most of those old systems were designed around people with shared backgrounds and shared basic assumptions. Remember, my 19th century public meetings designed for and by white men. These systems don't have any way to help people learn to navigate deep-rooted cultural differences and age-old suspicions. And since pretty much nothing else in our life does that either, your diverse talent can end up misunderstanding and mistrusting each other. Number 3, our new talent's profile of skills may not actually fit our systems. Not because of their education or their diction, but because they are ready to live in the fusion era and we're still stuck in the industrial era. We might be making something super high tech, or we're telling our employees or residents that we want them to innovate. But when they hit our conventional management or approval processes, they learn in a hurry that what we said we wanted is not what our systems are telling them that they wanted, which throws a lot of doubt on our original claims of wanting them to innovate at all. If true, out-of-the-box, near-perfect talent is also near-unicorn rare, it doesn't make much sense to make the whole effort about chasing them. Exotic trophy hunting isn't the best way for most of us to feed a household. And yet, this is exactly what a lot of conventional economic development efforts do. Instead, the real challenge ahead of us is to help our own nascent talent with its unconventional approaches and its rough edges, to help the rest of us move into a more resilient future. The remainder of this section will include 2 things, which might not seem to fit together at first glance, but ultimately do. First, the value of being true to what makes your place unique and authentic. That still rings true, not only because of the potential to attract ready-made talent, but because we need to retain and nurture our own talent as well. And if we are refocusing on building up our native talent, including the talent that we have overlooked in the past, we have to tell the truth more than ever. Not only will our own talent spot our hypocrisies and overblown statements faster than anyone, but they want to be proud of their community too. Number 2, more on this question of the mismatch between what we think talent is supposed to be and the actual talent already living among us. For that theme, I have adapted some elements from my most recent book, Everybody Innovates Here, because I think I said it in that book about as well as I'm ever going to say it. So if you like those sections, you know where to look for more. In her 2020 daily series of social media posts, or as she calls them, her letters, historian Heather Cox Richardson did a stunning and timely job of drawing out a core conflict underlying the development of American democracy. As she frames it, a segment of the Founding Fathers believed that citizens could and should be fully entrusted to make their own decisions. Their definition of a citizen left a lot to be desired, but it was a step forward in Western thinking at the time. Other early American leaders believed that the majority of people could not be trusted to make sound decisions and that they should function as the, quote, mudsills of society, obediently doing the work while their betters made the decisions. Mudsills were not only Black slaves, but lower class people of all backgrounds. As Dr. Richardson teases it out, most of the political conflicts of the last 200 years or more revolve around the fundamental conflict between these paradigms, as those supposed mudsills fight for expanded rights and the holders of the mudsill belief push back. In the immediate aftermath of the 2020 elections, this core conflict of paradigms comes into particularly sharp relief. We can't avoid seeing that a large amount of the general populace still believes that elites should run the show and that mudsills should be quiet and do the work. As that election demonstrated, the democratic people have potential paradigm cannot be taken for granted. And the mudsill paradigm still has many proponents, even though many of us may see that belief system stripped of its decorations as morally reprehensible. It appears that we have been speaking idealistically about our community's talent in one paradigm, but sometimes assuming that they are mudsills in another. But here's the nail that needs to go into the coffin of the mudsill elitist model. We cannot afford, in unambiguous dollars and cents, to assume that our communities are mostly made up of mudsills. In a future where economic prosperity and problem solving depends on human innovation and creativity, we will not survive on only a few fragile near unicorns. No amount of obedient mudsills will enable us to create the innovations, the transformations that our fusion era survival requires. It's like a city that depends on a nearly dried out reservoir, where only a smattering of rain replaces the thousands of gallons pulled out every year. After a certain point, no amount of promotion or magic or suit fitting to those few privileged talents will be enough to fill the reservoir. Instead, we need to build, enhance, and retrain our talent and redesign how we work better to fit them and our shared future. So again, that's from The Local Economy Revolution Has Arrived. What's changed and how you can help. Book is available anywhere you get your books, whether it's bookshop.org or Amazon, Lulu, Gumroad, or any other book purveyor. You can order it wherever you need to, in print or in digital. And again, I thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me today. There's a lot of things going on, but I knew that this was a long chapter, so I wanted to make sure that we gave it the time that it needed. So again, I'll be back on Wednesday, roughly this time. Sometimes I have to move it around a little bit. We'll do another reading, and I'll give you a few updates on things going on with the Wise Economy Workshop. In the meantime, if you'd like to learn more, you can check out the book, as I said. You can also check out wiseeconomy.com, and you may find it useful to sign up for the Substack, which is at wiseeconomy.substack.com. And subscribers to the Substack get not only access to some good events and information, but they get a weekly newsletter that connects some of the sort of sleeper stories of the day, the news stories from the past week that you might have missed, but that actually might be incredibly relevant and incredibly valuable to your vision and your work for the betterment of your community. So again, that's wiseeconomy.substack.com. And thank you again for taking the time. See you Wednesday. In the meantime, go get them. Bye.